Welcome to the Equipped Disciple channel. My name is Rick McClatchy. I will be your host. We are here to be and to make disciples of Jesus, and we do that through daily devos, through Sunday sermons, and through other discipleship resources. We are here to equip you to be an equipped disciple. Welcome into another day of your daily devos. I'm Pastor Rick, and we are jumping in to Genesis chapter 6. We are making some great progress in the book of Genesis. I hope you're enjoying it. Drop a comment if you have anything that you've been picking up. You're learning, you're growing. What's been exciting you about the book of Genesis? Maybe what you're looking forward to. If there's a particular chapter in Genesis that you really love, a particular story that you're keen on, I'd love to hear your thoughts there as we kind of prepare our way. But without further ado, today we are jumping in, like I said, to Genesis chapter 6. Going to cover just the first few verses where we're talking about Nephilim, Noah, and the rebellion, kind of just the pinnacle of the resistance against God. And it kind of leads into the flood. So that's kind of where we're at in the Genesis narrative so far. And so let's just jump into Genesis chapter 6. And verse 1, like and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff. I would appreciate it. It makes me happy, okay? But, all right, here we go. Verse 1, when mankind began to multiply on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of mankind were beautiful and that they took any they chose as wives for themselves. And the Lord said, my spirit will not remain with mankind forever. Some translations would say will not strive with mankind forever, because they are corrupt. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth, both in those days and afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of mankind, who bore children to them. They were powerful men of old, the famous men, the men of renown, is some translations say. When the Lord saw that human wickedness was widespread on the earth, and that every inclination of the human mind was nothing but evil all the time, the Lord regretted that he made man on the earth, and he was deeply grieved. Then the Lord said, I will wipe mankind, whom I created, off the face of the earth, together with the animals, creatures that crawl, and birds of the sky, for I regret that I made them. Noah, however, found favor with the Lord. So, okay, all right, that's quite the 8 verses we just read there. So let's talk about the Nephilim and the sons of God and that whole piece. That's obviously something that people talk about when they get into this chapter. Essentially, I want to make sure that we don't get too distracted by some of these conversation pieces. Just because ultimately, does it make the biggest difference in the world? My contention would be that it doesn't make that big of a difference. But we'll talk about it a little bit. The sons of God, there's 3 main theories around the sons of God statement here in Genesis 6. One is that they are fallen angels or demons that come down, or potentially that are already down because of their fallen state. Men of high social standing or authority, so kings, princes, that kind of thing. And you can make a reasonable case for any 3 of these and not sound like a total crazy person. And so there isn't really a right or wrong belief in this line necessarily. And again, one of the big convictions in my life when it comes to scripture, when it comes to doctrine, is to work from the obvious over to the obscure, because we want to make sure that what God has made obvious, we focus on and we make that a big deal. And the things that God has made less obvious, or what we might call obscure, is that we allow it to remain a little bit obscure. Not that you shouldn't dig and prod and try to get in to understand what is God trying to speak to us, but that we don't make it a primary, because there are too many variables that enter into the equation, meaning one small adjustment to one of those variables, we could come out with very different answers and yet still love and worship the same God of the Bible. And so fallen angels, men of high social standing, and the godly line of Seth. So the men of God, the sons of God, basically, coming down through the line of Adam and then through Seth, because obviously Cain's line was kind of going the way of wickedness. And so those are the three big concepts out there. I kind of lean towards the first one, even though there are definitely a couple of challenges with that one. But here's what another statement before I get to kind of resolving that, where God says 120 years. There's two big theories. There was God talking about a warning about the number of years until the flood was going to come. That is certainly possible. It would basically fit the narrative. Or is he talking about, a lot of people would view it as a shortening of man's lifetime, which definitely did play out to a large extent, because certainly we just got done talking yesterday about all the lineage stuff, and you saw people living for 800-900, almost 1,000 years in the case of Methuselah. And we're going to start seeing that drop off, where they're going to start living shorter amounts of time. So again, it could go either way, not really a humongous thing either way. And so keep the main thing the main thing. That would be a big piece. As we're studying the Bible, we want to make sure that we keep the main things the main things, and that we don't get like totally sidetracked into these side issues that really a lot of times just end up serving to distract us. And we want to make sure that we keep Jesus at the center, that we keep his kingdom as our focus, and that we are disciple makers, because that's what Jesus told us to do before he left. He said, go and make disciples. He didn't say go and have amazing debates. So we want to make disciples. Now, it doesn't mean debates are bad. I watch debates. I enjoy like the intellectual exercise that it is, and to evaluate truth. Like, we should definitely be a people that are passionate about knowing the truth. So it's okay to have those kinds of conversations, but at some point you have to be willing to accept a certain level of uncertainty in the process. That having a little bit of uncertainty or a little bit of doubt does not mean that the thing is irrelevant or false. So to me, if you're looking at the Nephilim, the sons of God piece, one of the biggest things I think you can pull out is whether you think it's demons or whether you think it's the sons of Seth or you think it's the kings and princes theories. One thing that we should definitely recognize is the spiritual world is real. And so we shouldn't actually be too freaked out to believe that maybe it would be the demon thing, even though that's kind of crazy, and like to even think about it just feels crazy. But the spiritual world is real, and we are talking about God and his heavenly hosts and the I can't remember the word now. I love that. It makes great video when you just can't remember the word that you're looking for. But the heavenly like assembly, the heavenly courts, there's just other scriptures that make reference to these things. And so you go, there's, God created angels, and there's a loose, reference to fallen angels. Some people think that it was 1/3 of the angels were in the rebellion and became part of the fallen angels, the demons. And so ultimately we need to keep in mind whichever one of those belief systems, back up here to the sons of God theories. We need to make sure that we recognize that the spiritual world is real, and that that has an impact on how we want to live our lives. As you go into Ephesians 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Because I'm telling you what, that'll save you a lot of problems in life when you realize that the main battle that you're facing is not against that person that's causing you tension or causing you frustration, but you're actually battling against a principality or power that's trying to take you down by weaving in some dissension or deception or frustration or irritation with another person that's created in the image of God. So again, coming back to the fact that the spiritual world is real, it's so good for us to live in that reality. So as we read this little bit of narrative, let's make sure we keep that in mind, regardless of where we land on that debate about the sons of God. And then the Nephilim. So whoever the Nephilim were, they didn't stay around for very long because the flood came pretty quickly. There is one other reference when the spies go and check out Canaan that they say they saw Nephilim, but really they just saw like quote unquote giants in the land, and the only word that he had in his mind most likely was just Nephilim. So he wasn't necessarily seeing actual Nephilim, but that's just what he called the giants in the land. So there is no evidence that that they lived beyond the flood. So there you go. The next lesson is sin lessens life and leads to judgment, which is pretty clear here in the way that the narrative plays out. And what do I mean by sin lessens life? Well, a lot of times sin shortens your life in that, I mean, you look at your 120 years scenario. Maybe God was shortening the lifespan to limit the amount of time one person could accomplish as much evil as possible, kind of a thing. And so, because when you take somebody that's evil and you let them live for 900 years, they can really work a lot of stuff into the system. You know, they have a long time to work the game. So again, it could have been that God was shortening lifespans. Also, it could have been just that the curse of sin had a negative impact on our physical bodies, and it began to play out over time, shortening lifespans just as a natural consequence, and maybe less a specific judgment. But sin lessens life because Jesus came that you would have life and you would have life to the full. Jesus came that you would have life and life to the full. The thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And James tells us that that sin, when it is full grown, leads to death. Period. End of story. Sin always, always, always leads to death. So it lessens life, whether it's lessening you living life to the full, like Jesus is saying, I've come to give you life and life to the full more abundantly. So if you're not following the Jesus plan, then you're getting less life than you should be getting, because Jesus' plan for you is life and life to the full. And then certainly it leads to judgment, as we will see in the next few verses. Come back tomorrow for that. Same bat time, same bat channel, that kind of thing. And then we see this interesting little phrase, but Noah found favor. We could talk a little bit about God being grieved that he made mankind. And I think that it wasn't like a regret in his decision, but I think it was just a sadness over the destructiveness of sin. God so loves the world that he gave his only son to die for us. And so obviously God's love runs incredibly deep for us. But sin and that rebellion against him was so painful that he was so deeply grieved that the only way he could think, or the only way he felt appropriate to express that emotion to mankind, was to say that he was grieved and that he regretted that he made mankind. So Noah found favor, though. So that just, again, shows God's willingness to show mercy and grace and love and work the plan, you know, the plan that he laid out. Jesus, the Lamb of God, slain before the foundations of the earth. Noah found favor. That word genuinely, legitimately means unmerited, undeserved favor, undeserved grace. And so it wasn't because, now it does say in the next couple of verses, we'll see tomorrow in the Devo, that he was upright and, you know, was seeking God. But that came after the statement that Noah found favor in God's eyes. And so it's really important to recognize that Noah was not Superman. He was not holier than thou. He was not like the man. He found favor in God's sight, and that's what made the difference. God's favor is what makes the difference in our lives. And then he responded in obedience to what God brought to him. So we'll get to see that again tomorrow as we dig into the future verses there. So let's keep the main thing. The main thing Let's remember that the spiritual world is real, that sin lessens life and leads to judgment. Let's, just remember how amazing it is that we receive favor. Ephesians 2:8, for you are saved by grace through faith. By grace through faith, not of works, lest anyone should boast. It is not about anything that you have done. You can't boast about it. So there you go. That is Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. I hope you are strengthened and encouraged today. Again, drop a comment, like the video, share it around with some friends. Have a wonderful day. God bless you, and I will see you tomorrow.